You've been taught to wait. Wait until you feel ready. Wait until the anxiety passes. Wait until you feel confident, motivated, clear-headed. Wait until your emotions cooperate. And then, when you finally feel right, that's when you'll act. Here's the problem. That moment never comes. And while you're waiting to feel better, people with the same fears, the same doubts, the same anxiety are executing anyway. Not because they feel different, but because they understand something you don't. Your emotions aren't the enemy. Your belief that you need to fix them before you move is. If you've ever felt anxious and interpreted it as a sign to stop, if you've ever felt uncertain and used it as proof you're not ready, if you've ever waited for courage to arrive before taking action, then what I'm about to tell you will completely rewire how you relate to execution. Because the reason you're stuck has nothing to do with your emotions being too strong. It has everything to do with your strategy for dealing with them being completely backwards. Here's what most people believe. Emotions are signals. If I feel fear, that means danger. If I feel doubt, that means I'm unprepared. If I feel anxious, that means I shouldn't move forward. So they wait. They work on themselves. They try to think their way into feeling better. And once they feel better, they'll act. But here's what execution psychology actually shows. Emotions aren't accurate predictors of reality. They're just neurological responses to perception. And the perception is often wrong. You feel anxious before sending the email, not because the email is dangerous, but because your brain interprets social exposure as a threat. You feel fear before starting the project, not because you'll fail, but because uncertainty triggers the same neural pathways as physical danger. You feel doubt about your ability, not because you lack skill, but because attempting something new activates your brain's risk assessment system. Your emotions are giving you information, but the information isn't "this is wrong." The information is "this matters to you." And there's a massive difference. Research from Affective Neuroscience shows that people who execute consistently don't have fewer uncomfortable emotions. They have a completely different relationship with them. They've learned to act while feeling, not after feeling better. Let me show you what happens when you operate from the old model. You want to start something, a business, a creative project, a difficult conversation. Immediately, your nervous system activates. You feel tension, uncertainty, maybe fear. And because you've been taught that feelings are facts, you interpret that emotional response as evidence. Or see? I'm not ready. This proves I'm not confident enough yet. I need to work on my mindset first. So you delay, you consume more content, you plan more, you wait for the feeling to shift. And here's what actually happens. The longer you wait, the stronger the association becomes. Your brain learns that this action equals discomfort. So next time, the emotional response is even bigger. You're not reducing the fear by waiting. You're training your nervous system to fear it more. Behavioral psychology has a term for this. Experiential avoidance. It's the process of trying to avoid internal discomfort, and it's one of the strongest predictors of chronic inaction. Not lack of knowledge, not lack of resources, the refusal to move while uncomfortable. And here's the part that makes this so destructive. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. So when you treat emotions like threats, your brain does exactly what it's supposed to do. It protects you from the threat by stopping you from acting. You think you're being cautious. Your brain thinks it's saving your life. So you end up in this loop. Feel discomfort, interpret it as danger, avoid the action, feel temporary relief, repeat, and every cycle strengthens the pattern. This is why self-help advice that says build confidence first, or get clarity first, or fix your mindset first is accidentally sabotaging you, because you're not building confidence by waiting. You're building a stronger avoidance pattern. Here's how you know if emotional avoidance is controlling your execution. 1. You wait to feel a certain way before you act. 2. You interpret anxiety or doubt as a stop sign instead of just sensation. 3. You spend more time managing your emotional state than taking action. 4. You believe that successful people feel different than you do. If any of that's true, you're not struggling with emotions. You're struggling with the belief that emotions need to be resolved before movement is possible. So what actually works? Execution psychology has a framework called emotional tolerance training, and it completely inverts how you've been taught to operate. Step 1. Separate emotion from meaning. Right now, when you feel fear, your brain immediately assigns meaning to it. This means I'm not ready. This means it's a bad idea. This means I should stop. But that's not what the emotion means. The emotion is just your nervous system responding to novelty, uncertainty, or perceived risk. So you practice labeling without meaning. I'm feeling anxiety. That's it. Not I'm feeling anxiety, which means I'm unprepared. Just I'm feeling anxiety. And that's a sensation, nothing more. Neuroscience research shows that the simple act of naming an emotion without attaching a story to it reduces its intensity by up to 30%. You're not suppressing it. You're removing the narrative that turns sensation into a stop sign. Step 2. Expect discomfort as part of the process. Here's the shift that changes everything. Most people think execution should feel smooth once you're on the right path. So when it feels hard, when there's resistance, when there's anxiety, they assume something's wrong. But research from performance psychology shows the opposite. Discomfort isn't a sign you're off track, it's a sign you're in new territory. And new territory always activates your nervous system. Always. The people who execute consistently don't wait for it to feel comfortable. They expect it to feel uncomfortable and they move anyway. Not because they're braver, but because they've recalibrated what discomfort means. Discomfort isn't danger, it's data. It's your system telling you this is unfamiliar. And unfamiliar is exactly where growth lives. Step 3, build tolerance through exposure, not elimination. Here's what doesn't work. Trying to get rid of the emotion before you act. Meditation to calm down. Journaling to process. Affirmations to build confidence. None of that is bad. But if you're using it to avoid action until you feel better, you're reinforcing the wrong pattern. What works is acting while the emotion is present. You feel the anxiety and send the message anyway. You feel the doubt and start the project anyway. You feel the fear and have the conversation anyway. Not because the feeling went away, but because you're teaching your nervous system that the feeling isn't dangerous. Exposure therapy research proves this. The fastest way to reduce fear isn't to avoid the trigger. It's to approach the trigger repeatedly while nothing bad happens. And each time you act despite the discomfort, your brain updates its threat assessment. Oh, that feeling didn't mean danger, it just meant newness. Over time, the emotional intensity decreases, not because you controlled it, but because you stopped letting it control you. Now here's the part most people resist. The relationship you have with your emotions right now was taught to you. You weren't born believing that fear means stop or that doubt means you're inadequate. You learned that from parents who wanted to protect you, from a culture that romanticizes confidence, from influencers who only show you the highlight reel. And because it was learned, it can be unlearned. You can build a completely different relationship with your internal experience, one where emotions are weather, not directions, where feelings are sensations, not verdicts. But here's what that requires. You have to be willing to feel bad and move anyway. And that goes against everything you've been taught about self-care, emotional wellness, and listening to your feelings. So let me be clear. I'm not saying ignore your emotions. I'm saying stop obeying them like they're facts. Your anxiety isn't telling you the truth about your capability. Your doubt isn't telling you the truth about your readiness. Your fear isn't telling you the truth about the outcome. They're just telling you that you care, that it matters, that there's something on the line. And that's not a reason to stop. That's confirmation you're moving in the right direction. Studies in decision-making show that people who wait for emotional clarity before acting make slower decisions and experience more regret, not because they made worse choices, but because they spent so much time managing their feelings that opportunities passed them by. Meanwhile, people who act while emotionally uncomfortable make faster decisions, learn faster, and course correct in real time, because they're getting feedback from reality instead of spiraling in their own head. Here's what changes when you stop treating emotions like obstacles. You stop waiting for Monday. You stop needing the perfect mood. You stop requiring ideal conditions. You start acting from wherever you are, with whatever you're feeling, because you finally understand that the feeling was never the problem. The problem was believing the feeling had to change before you could. And here's the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. You've been using emotional management as a sophisticated form of procrastination. I just need to get in the right headspace first. I just need to feel more confident. I just need to process this anxiety. And while you're processing, someone else is building. They're not more talented. They're not more confident. They're not less afraid. They just refuse to let their internal weather system dictate their external actions. So here's your shift. Stop asking, how do I feel about this? Start asking, what do I need to do regardless of how I feel? Because motivation is a feeling, confidence is a feeling, clarity is a feeling. And if you wait for feelings to guide you, you'll be waiting forever. Execution doesn't require emotional alignment. It requires emotional tolerance, the ability to hold discomfort and move forward at the same time. And that's not a personality trait, it's a skill, one you build by doing the thing while feeling the thing. So here's your move. Identify one action you've been avoiding because it doesn't feel right. And do it today, not after you feel better, not after you've processed, right now. While the doubt is there, while the fear is present, while it still feels uncomfortable. And notice what happens, not to the outcome, to the feeling. Because I guarantee you this, the emotion you've been running from isn't as powerful as you think. It only feels that way because you keep giving it veto power over your actions. Take the power back, not by controlling the emotion, but by moving despite it. If this hit different than every other motivational video you've watched, subscribe. Because next week, we're breaking down why starting is easy, but continuing is brutal. and why your brain is biologically wired to quit right when it starts to matter.